Hello, so this is another English assignment. I've got one more which I will talk about at the end. So sadly, if you are having trouble hearing me, turn up your volume because I can't help it when I'm in my room. I don't know what it is about my room or if I'm the way because I'm keeping something elevated to make sure it doesn't overheat, let alone something. So I don't know if I'm blocking the mic too much. I thought the mic was somewhere else on this thing, if I'm being honest with you. So what I'm going to do is go into the poem, the poet, a little bit about the poet, which I'm going to have to make sure I pull that back up right. Read the poem, then talk about the connections to myself, to the audience, which is children, and my profession, which might be a little tricky but not impossible. Talking about the poetic devices and how they make the poem work for my specific audience, and then talk about the picture book thing I'm going to be doing for that. So the only thing, Professor, I'm going to tell you that I don't know, and I didn't give myself a lot of time to look for, is what grade this poem would be considered as. I think, if I'm being honest, 5th through 7th would probably work. 4th, maybe. That's like the cusp of starting, like the really getting into books if you're not already into books. 3rd grade, we weren't doing 3rd grade, but I don't know. Third graders definitely wouldn't understand. I don't think 4th graders I wouldn't understand 100%. I'd say 5th or 7th at the best. I don't know, and I can't guarantee what grade this poem was made to kind of use for, or those who read it would consider it for. But my opinion is 5th through 7th at best would probably understand it a lot more than anything else. Sadly enough, I don't have a lot of time. I gotta go to work in a few minutes, but I am gonna try to do the best I can with this. This is actually take 2. I thought I wasn't gonna do a second round, but I am. So pretty much, this guy is well known. Ironically enough, originally right after class, I literally looked at all the poem categories. I had one from libraries, 3 from the LGBTQ, which one connection for me would be them because I'm bisexual, depending on what. I don't even think it matters which one it was made for, but still. 2 from autumn, but 1 from myth, ironically enough, and it's one they made a TV show on PBS when I was a kid. I forgot this thing was a poem originally, and I had 4 backups from the What Kids Like, 2 being Alice in Wonderland related, 1 being Shel Silverstein, and 1 being Edgar Allan Poe's probably most famous poem known to man. I'm not saying it's the best poem that you should consider him as, but it's the most well-known one that anybody would have read. Even I probably did at some point. So with us being already 3.5 minutes in, let's get into this. So the poem I'm reading is "Don't Go Into the Library" by Alberto Rios. Sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly. He was born in 1952 in Arizona. He's also an author and won the Walt Whitman Award for one of his, I don't think it was one of his poems, but one of his books possibly, which ironically enough, one of my LGBTQ poems I was considering is by Walt Whitman. In 1994, he was the Regent Professor of English at Arizona State University, and he also taught there in the 1980s, which made sense. In 2013, he was named the inaugural State Poet Laureate of Arizona. And in somewhere I read along the lines of he was known as a poet of revere and magical perception, which kind of I agree with, especially with how he described everything in this poem. He's a Chancellor of the Academy of American Poets. He was from 2014 to 2020. So I don't know if he's just stopped or if he has passed or what. I don't know if he's still alive or not. He would be very old by this point now, definitely. But yeah. So let's go into the poem. I'm hoping I can get through this correctly this time around, because this is where I kind of got myself a little flustered. So, fingers crossed. Don't Go Into the Library by Alberto Rios. The library is dangerous. Don't go in. If you do, you know what will happen. It's like a pet store or a bakery. Every single time you come out of there holding something, every single time you'll come out of there holding something in your arms. So you were off to a great start. Those novels with their big eyes and those no nonsense, all muscled greyhounds and Dobermans, all nonfiction and business. Pull this up. Cuddly when they're young, but then the first page is turned. The donut scent of it all, knowledge, the aroma of coffee being made. In all those books, something for everyone. The deli offerings of civilization itself. The library is the book of books. It's concrete and wood and glass covers, keeping them within them the very big, very long story of everything. The library is dangerous, full of answers. If you go inside, you may not come out the same person who went in. So, I'm going to go a little bit into the effectiveness a little bit first. This poem is almost making it seem like a warning, but it's not. It's a reverse psychology of way to get kids interested. I mean, there's more ways to do it now, like with graphic novels and comic books is a good start. Fantasy genre or any kind of genre, there's something for everybody. But the thing is, kids don't always want to read, because most of the time, if they don't find it appealing when they're a child, before they start school, they pretty much, it's almost like a chore after a certain point, depending on how things go in your early years. So, like, I don't know about K, but because you're still learning how to read and write, but I would say, first through third grade at least. So, which makes sense why we were going with 4th through 7th, if I'm correct. So connections. I'm gonna go actually skip to the connection and profession first, because that's probably the second shortest. It kind of mixes in with the connection to myself. So, ironically enough, yes, I probably wanted to be a princess or a ballerina or something like very early, but honestly, when I was a kid, especially by the time I was 8, if not before I was in high school, I wanted to become a librarian. I actually did. Yes, I played house, but I was more like, I made a zoo out of my VHS tapes, and I made a library, same with the VHS tapes, but more having my books kind of stacked and then using my stuffed animals as kids or clientele, and it was fun. I kind of remember it a little bit, and it was fun. So originally my idea was to be a librarian. Well, that didn't pan out exactly. Like, I learned a little bit more about being a librarian, and then some stuff in my life happened where I decided sometime during my junior, I wanted to become a social worker. And that doesn't mean that social workers don't use books. They do use books. A lot of times you can find, teachers do this more than probably social workers, but having books, not just for appealing, because, like, social workers are therapists, they're advocates, they're, when I mean therapists, I mean, like, they listen. You can be, and possibly advise, but mostly we listen. And we can, and like I just said, advise on other things. We work with the elderly, we work with the police, we work in schools, we work in hospitals, we work everywhere. So if you do work with children, which is a profession, school social workers are a major thing, both in elementary, junior high, and high school. My idea was originally supposed to be high school, but now it's just in general. That having books that maybe, it's not the ones that are like not just downright explain what I mean, like issues like stranger danger and all that, but like you can have books for many things, and even books that it's not like explaining downright bullying or downright stranger danger kind of books. Some books like the fantasy genre that I touched on in the last video, that I was gonna be reading, the one I was gonna be reading showed about the hero isn't always the most popular. The hero isn't always given the most respect or love and attention at home. Which usually is in surprise and fantasy genres. You want to make sure the hero has his trials and hurdles to overcome. But the fantasy genre book I had read kind of gave me the feeling of he was more of a connection than one of the characters in it, and it just makes sense. Now for this, like I probably would definitely use this poem if I did work with kids, because it's doing the reverse psychology. It's trying to say, I'm going to say, oh, don't go into the library. You don't, because you might not come out the same person you were before. You always come out with a book or something. And it makes it literally sound more appealing. Like if I had read this like when I was a kid, I probably would have said, can we go to the library? I mean, like early years. But because of certain ages, I don't know if I would have understood. Pretty much it's like I said, I'm like Matilda, and I almost became a librarian, and I'm hoping that maybe I'll keep this bookmarked in my computer. Maybe I'll print this out or roster it, maybe at some point to use if I do work with kids. But yeah, so let's go into the Poetic Devices before I'm late for work. So the Poetic Devices I found. Now the weird thing is, and Professor, you can critique me on this, this is almost a metaphor. They use the word like once in the one of the early verses, and that's it. There's no as, there's no like after that. And so I have to say it has to be a simile because it has one like in it, but it's a meld of simile and metaphor together. Because it also goes into, I say it's more imagery, but it could have also personification melded in there, which works. The imagery part, which I kind of see is the novels with big eyes, describing the I believe this is all for the nonfiction, as strong dogs such as greyhounds and dobermans, saying that it doesn't downright say it is, but it pretty much describes knowledge as the scent of coffee and donuts, which I definitely perk you can, especially when you get older, kids, can perk you up and get you ready for the day and everything. So it's like, or opening your mind to things. Like I swear, when I smell coffee, it's like my mind is awake and open. What else do I have? And then this kind of goes into, I think this is the last imagery relation that might be personification. I'm not 100% sure. That the books, the library is like a deli. I would actually go more into saying it's a buffet than a deli. If I'm, no offense Alberto, but I would have described it as a buffet because you have something for everybody as well. I really don't, I'm guessing the thing is he wrote this in 2014, or it was 2014 or 2017. It's in my site reference, I swear. But it's just the fact of, I think this was like more present day, where it's like I believe that the word buffet was probably more a standard type word now. But I kind of would lean towards the word buffet if I could instead of the word deli. Oops, I flipped this. And then the one thing that kind of makes me think this is almost personification in a sense is when he starts describing the library itself. He goes into, let me go up to that. The library is the book of books. It's concrete and wood and glass covers, keeping them within them the very big and very long story of everything. He is right. Before the internet, that was the original knowledge base. Everybody went, heck, if any of you guys have seen Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, it's set in a time period where the internet really wasn't a big thing, where you still had to go to the library to look stuff up and look, especially about like town history. And it's like when you wanted to find out something, you had to go to the library or go to your school's library or such. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I would say I definitely would use this. I love this poem. I'm kind of wish I could do more videos doing the other ones, especially the kids like ones. But I gotta get dressed or going in a few minutes. So the last thing I'm gonna talk about is, and Professor, I'm hoping you're okay with this. So next is I think it's the realistic fiction. So I'm not gonna be doing. I don't know if that's gonna be videotized. I don't think it will be. However, when we get, I think the third one is going to be picture book. If not, that's the last one we got to do. No matter what happens with my other class, I'm making sure I do this. I am going to be making my own read aloud book, thing of this. It's going to only be the read aloud and very little commentary on the book. Mainly, it's going to be relating to myself. I will be making sure I do an APA paper, or like we did for fantasy. I hope it's going to be like that one. And but I desperately want to do that. So, in the links in my description, Professor, there is description down below. There's a link to me actually reading the full. I wish I could have just did this full originally, but if you want to see, also go into my thing, I have when I was doing it in parts as well, if you want to take a look at that. But me reading aloud the Marlon Bundo book, if you want to get an idea of what you're going to be seeing when I do this, probably a lot less commentary in the beginning, more at the end. But yeah, I hope you all are having a good Sunday. I will see you in 2 weeks for my class. I'm hoping everyone's doing okay, and I'm hoping we have a good week. This is Ali saying, and I'm only doing this because I feel like this is a regular video. This is Ali signing off. Click like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Comment down below what you think of this poem if you're from my class, and if you also chose this, or what you think of the poem, and also rate me on how I read it. I think I only flubbed once, but I hope I read it the way Alberto wanted it to be read out loud.